women coming together when they are more mature recognize that they were victims of a sense. And it wasn't one woman against the other woman, but that together their collective strength, their collective understanding of why they got caught in this web was really something that they all contributed to, because they began to understand why they got caught in, but they also began to understand that together they would be stronger to unravel what was going on.
Welcome to the Divorce Survival Guide podcast, where we have open and honest conversations about co-parenting, separation, divorce, and the hardest question of all, should you stay or should you go? I'm Kate Anthony, your divorce survival guide, and I'm here to help you navigate some of the roughest waters you've ever swum in and answer some of your toughest questions. I've been to hell and back, and now it's my mission in life to help you get to the other side of this process with your sanity and your heart intact.
Hey everyone, welcome back. So first of all, I want to say thank you to everybody who's reached out. We are okay. We are safe from the wildfires, and it's been a really, really, really rough and rocky week. For those of you who are on my email list, I did send out an email earlier this week about it. But I just want to, reassure everybody that my family and I are safe. Our homes remain untouched. We do live just a few miles away from the Eaton fire, but we are thankfully outside of the evacuation and contamination zones. Although it was a couple of days of touch and go and not knowing and, having the cars packed up, ready to evacuate. Anyway, a lot of my friends have lost everything. A lot of them. Altadena is very close to here. It's an extension of our community. Our kids grew up there. They went to school there. All of their schools are gone. Their friends' homes are gone. The, homes that they grew up playing in are gone. The entire neighborhood is just simply gone. It is an emotional and very traumatizing time for us here. And it feels like a combination of the worst of 9/11 and COVID happening all at once. For those of you who remember what 9/11 was like, it's like that here. Less loss of life, but far more destruction and devastation. Anyway, we're doing okay. I'm continuing to move forward. It's going to take a little time for things to kind of normalize and stabilize here. I'm going to be working with clients and continue working with everybody that I'm, connecting with. But all my other operations are going to be a little bit slower because the trauma of all of this is pretty severe. Anyway, so thank you. I love you. And let me just bring everybody back to the real reason we're here, which is the podcast. So this week I have with me Julie Edelman. She is the best-selling author of the how-to book, The Accidental Housewife: How to Overcome Housekeeping Hysteria One Task at a Time. She's a well-known lifestyle expert and has appeared on The Today Show, The View, Rachel Ray, Fox and Friends, The Doctors, etc., etc., etc. The Accidental Sisterhood is her debut novel, and it is a testimony to embracing a life detour with hope and determination following her triumph over breast cancer. And so, without further ado, here's my conversation about the Accidental Sisterhood and really the importance of embracing community when in the midst of trauma and change. Here is Julie Edelman. Julie, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your new book and all things dating after 50, being out in the dating world, abuse, vulnerabilities, all of it.
And then some.
And then some. So I guess I want to start with, one of the things that you talk about is that women over 50 are more likely to be single. than men of the same age. Interesting math. So let's talk about that for a second.
I'm not a mathematical whiz, so this had nothing to do with any kind of figuring out the percentages, the ratios. But if you look at it, I think as women get more mature or seasoned past 50, we also, though we want to be involved with somebody, there's two sort of, I think, groups. Those who desperately need somebody in their life, and then those who have finally figured out we don't need anybody in our lives to complete us.
Amen, sister.
And so there may be the in-between, but I think those are really two camps. Men, on the other hand, I think really like having somebody in their life, both as a mother, if you will, to take care of things, erring person. And men just seem to, even though they say they enjoy being single and they semi have the upper hand because they have a wider reservoir. Younger women will go out with older men. Younger men, I don't have the ratio, but as a rule, aren't as drawn to older women. A lot of them like them, and they're the smart ones, the ones who recognize.
Right.
So in answer, or the reason I say that more men will remarry than women is because of those reasons. Needing, after they've gone through their flirtations and they've gotten this all out of their system, they want somebody to take care of them. It is, there is the good old men. Not are from our women are from. Where are we from? We're from
We're from Venus. We're from Venus. They're from Mars.
Another thing. Science, math, those are not my strong suits. When I went to Duke, that was not where I got my degrees. But I think there's basic needs that men have, and wanting an old-fashioned woman to take care of them. I think that may change. My son is 30. When he's 50, it may be different.
I think you're right.
But the men we're talking about like a woman to take care of them. And after a while, do the laundry, do the other things. We, on the other hand, the ones who fall into the camp of we can survive without them. And we've learned that our value is worthy of that and that we don't need them. It'd be nice to have them in our lives if they're partners and they complement us, not in, oh, you look beautiful. Together we make a really good couple. We complement what's our goods, our bad, and there's no bads because we all have our stuff, and particularly a lot more baggage as we grow more seasoned.
Yeah. For us, right. I'm not looking to be I have a child. I'm not looking to be anybody's mother again. And I do think when we're younger, women use our nurturing and caretaking as emotional and relational currency, right? We see a guy and we're like, oh, I can fix him and I can make him over and I can do that, right? And then we have babies and we're like, and now you need to step up and be an equal partner. Right. And it's a bit of a bait and switch that I think we need to take responsibility for. But yes, I do think that when we ultimately get divorced and end up single, we are far less likely. I mean, I think statistically, this is shown that we are far less likely to get remarried than men are. The funny math I was saying was that, 39% of women over 50 are single and 28% of men over 50 are single. And I don't know that it's because there are more of them in the population necessarily. It's that they're getting remarried and they're not remarrying us.
Not usually.
They're usual. Well, right. Because if they were remarrying us, those numbers would be more even. Correct. They are remarrying younger. So there you go.
Well, I also think, to your point, sometimes I think they want another child too. And to start a new life, it's like a new beginning. It's not midlife crisis. It's life crisis. Because a child can keep you young. But
sure.
The other thing you bring up, because when I wrote The Accidental Housewife, I was going through a detour in my life, or an accidental detour, which is my sort of my line of life. And it was, here I was thrust into love, marriage, and a baby carriage. And at the same time, I was also trying to maintain a sense of self and a career. Our generation, it wasn't as black and white. We had to, if I didn't, deal with my family throne looking like a paintball target, no one would, because my husband at the time wasn't going to do that. So we didn't have a choice in a sense. We had a choice. We could let our house go to pot, or we could try to figure out how to balance homekeeping responsibilities. And that, in fact, led to my writing The Accidental Housewife, which was really a tome for the home, but more of a outreach to other women like you and I, trying to do it all, recognized we couldn't. We really didn't want to be Martha, but somebody had to do it to keep health inspectors at bay and my son from starvation. So with humor, hope, and, a toilet brush instead of a microphone, I went to, take care of these or to try to navigate what became my responsibilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so what inspired you then, later, these years later, to write The Accidental Sisterhood?
Well, I just had mentioned about life's detours. Going through love, marriage, and a baby carriage and a bunch of other things inspired The Accidental Housewife. Fast forward to about almost 2 years ago now, I was doing a self-exam and I found a lump in my left breast. And I went, oh my God, this can't be. Breast cancer does not run in my family. And because you go through that. And then it was just, no. But it turned out it was breast cancer. Fortunately, I caught it early. So everybody listening out there, please, early detection is our best defense against it becoming something that can't be dealt with. But during this period, having a life-changing detour and diagnosis like that is a real motivator to say, hey, what have I not been doing that I've been wanting to do? And that was turning this detour into a dream, which was writing a women's fiction novel. And so with a blank paper or a blank screen in hand in front of me, I knew the name of what I wanted, which was The Accidental Sisterhood, and I knew the ending. And so that's how The Accidental Sisterhood came to be. It's women's fiction. It's so much fun. I had a blast doing it. It was a great distraction, a great way to deal with what was going on, because it's also what I call a factionalized version of a lot of experiences in my life. Love, marriage, The Accidental Housewife. So there's a meta of me in there. But of course, these are fictional characters, so you can have so much more fun with them. And to your point is about relationships, and we can get more into that. So that's how The Accidental Sisterhood came to be.
I love it. I love it. So one of the things that this book really touches on is older women in particular being more vulnerable to scams and abuse and toxicity and all of the things in relationships. Why do you think if we're the ones who are like, I can take it or leave it, or if you don't compliment me, like I don't need it, why would we be more vulnerable?
Well, the characters, to your point in my book, without giving too much away, there's Jules Malone, who's a little bit of me or a lot of me. And to your point, she's an older woman who's been married one time and had a fiance who was abusive, but she still yearns for that. We all want to love, be in this fantasy of ours. And it was a fairy tale fantasy. And the main gentleman in this fellow, Sean Connors, is a seductive, really charming, romantic. And it was just like something she'd never had before. That and sexually, he was something she'd never had before. So even in her 50s, she was having something she'd never experienced. The other women, too, I think, found different, or Sean fulfilled different needs in their lives. And so you find these different compartments of why you're attracted to someone. They didn't need him necessarily, but he filled a void, or he filled something that they wanted. And he gave it to them until he didn't. And then there is one young woman too, because even a young woman was somehow not seduced. She was too smart to be seduced, but she figured, what the heck? This man is serving a purpose. For her, it was more black and white than it was for the older women. So I think, again, having gone through experiences, he provided, men in our lives provide maybe something that we need, that we allow the idiosyncrasies, the ghosting, the love bombing, to say, okay, I'll deal with this now. And particularly since he wasn't around all the time.
I think there is something to that, like dating when you're older, right? Is that there are certain things that you're going to give more of a pass to because we think, well, God, like I have a fully formed life here. He has a fully formed life. We're trying to merge these two, see if these two fully formed lives can actually fit together at this stage of our lives. Sure, there's going to be idiosyncrasies and quirks and ways of doing things that are a little bit off or different from me, but like, yeah, I get that. We'll work through, right? There is that you are giving more of a latitude because of our age, in a sense.
Lynn, this time of year, parenting can be such a flusterclux.
You've come to the right place. I'm Lynn Lyons, and I've been treating anxious families for over 30 years.
I'm Lynn's sister-in-law and co-host Robin Hudson.
Join us for Flusterclux, a podcast for parents who worry.
Wait, that's everybody.
Yeah, these last few years have felt like one long anxiety attack for so many.
Why do you think parents are always surprised that a podcast about anxiety relates to them, even if no one in their house has an anxiety disorder?
Well, worry is human. Everyone does it. And anxiety shows up when we face uncertainty.
All the parenting tips you've taught me have been essential.
I love to break it down into skills we need to manage worry in our families.
We've covered so many topics: depression, burnout, meltdowns, perfectionism.
Don't forget scary mothers-in-law.
Right, but of course that's not my mother-in-law.
Because that's my mother.
And a listener.
As a psychotherapist, I like to teach parents and kids how to respond to everyday moments in healthy ways.
Managing anxiety really can be taught.
It really can. And I'll even tell you what to say.
We talk about serious stuff, but without being too serious.
Anxiety wants everything serious. Anxiety doesn't stand a chance when we're laughing, even about the tough stuff.
Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist, and I'm an author of the book, How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
To your point, Kate, it's also, we all have our come-froms, you know, and there's a reason that somebody's reacting to you, not because of something you did, but because of their own background, their history, emotion, and psychologically with relationships. So you start to recognize it's really not aimed at you. So you take a back step from that and say, when you hear them doing something, unless they're red flags that they're crossing the line, and then it's not about come-froms, it's about go, get away, forget coming. Go. Do not.
Right. Yes.
But I think we become, to your point, more tolerant and understanding because we have them too. And the point there too is I think we begin to discuss them. We can say, you know what, I reacted like this because here's what it did. It triggered something in me. When you're younger, you're not really sure what your triggers are because you haven't lived life to have those triggers or at least be aware of them. And believe me, I spent $30,000 in therapy to help me find my triggers, and I continue because
girls,
but that's okay. And I think that's really important for us to sort of take a look at ourselves so we know ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. One of the sort of central themes in the book is the sisterhood. Obviously, it's the accidental sisterhood. All of these women who have been impacted by this one man in their lives. Why do you feel like that's so important for women?
Well, it's been really interesting. And in the reviews I've been getting too, which have been wonderful, fortunately, because you never know. I thought maybe it'd be another book that collect dust on the shelf, which as a housewife, I know how to clean.
Yeah.
But I think what happened is in this book, most of the time women get angry with one another if they're involved with the same man. And they'll find envy, they'll find evil. These women didn't, because they recognized that none of them really were aware of what was going on. So they took the high road. And I think for me, that was a really interesting difference. And it wasn't about a wife coming and saying, why are you having an affair? It was about exploring amongst one another that there was, I say, they got all caught in this web of lies, love, and lust. But it was unraveled by the power of sisterhood. And I think women coming together when they are more mature recognize that they were victims of a sense. And it wasn't one woman against the other woman, but that together their collective strength, their collective understanding of why they got caught in this web was really something that they all contributed to, because they began to understand why they got caught in, but they also began to understand that together they would be stronger to unravel what was going on. And that women's relationships can be really wonderful. And sisterhood, to me, you have different kinds of sisterhoods, I think, throughout your life. When you go to college, you have your sororities, let's say. When you get married, it's, new brides. And motherhood, you have a new sisterhood. When you get divorced, there's a new sisterhood. You become a housewife. And so I think sisterhoods, I love just that word because it's a community, and there's different ones depending on where you are in your life's journey. But they're also powerful. Also for me with my breast cancer, a whole nother sisterhood came to be. So that's why for me, the power of sisterhood, not just in female relationships at a time when you're being scorned by someone, but you're just going through, as I said, divorce, empty nesting, newly married, college, are very powerful and important.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. I have my group programs for women, and it is the most powerful sisterhood. There is a patriarchal system at play that's pitting us against each other. I don't think we actually organically want that. We actually do bond better with each other. We need each other. We love each other. And I think that we're starting to see that more in the last, certainly, I think, decade. I've noticed it, that we really do band together. And even I always say to women if they badmouth the other woman, right? And I say, this is probably a woman who is, or the new wife, the new spouse, the new supply, right? This is probably somebody who has been lied to and gaslit just as much as you.
And that goes back to the come-froms, it's reactive.
This is somebody who is just looking for love, and they think they found it. And you don't know what lies he's telling her. You know what lies he's telling you, right? That she's not the one to vilify.
Well, and that's the thing, the commonalities, and to know you're not alone. And it sort of validates the fact that, you have these feelings and other ones too, that you don't have to keep it inside, because we're all going through different things at different times in our life. And as were these women in the book. But rather than feeling guilty, really, versus feeling alone, feeling you have to attack to transcend and really triumph in these situations, it's so much better if you can just say, you know what, I got caught in this, and here's why. So it's a great vetting. It's very it's cleansing, if you will, to have people around you who can say, you know what, I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. I was feeling guilty. So it's therapeutic. It's like a therapy session. And as I said, an opportunity to let things out and be vilified, not be vilified.
Absolutely. What advice would you give women who are, let's say, women who listening to this podcast, they're getting divorced. A lot of them are, mid 40s, 50, I don't know, usually between, it doesn't matter. I don't know what the exact demographics are. Old enough, but they're getting divorced. And they have, many of them, been the victims of, various forms of domestic abuse, whether it's financial, emotional, all of that. What advice would you give them getting out into the dating scene now, sort of the second round?
Well, years ago, because sort of as we talk, I did my one-hit wonder, I called it, and it was called Boyfriend Cleanse. It was my music video, and it was take a shower, wash him off, change your number, get him gone. But I had a 3-stage detoxing program for the Boyfriend Cleanse. And I think the important part is really first to allow yourself time to regroup.
Yes.
Don't just rush back. And it was when we started talking, it's about get to know you, and let all that anger out in the beginning. Because if you're going to go out into the dating world angry or Men often will go back and just as a need, sort of boomerang or whatever they call that, when men go, they need to find somebody, rebound. Thank you.
Yep.
I think you need a good year before you go out there. I mean, in your experience, you've been divorced. I mean, right? You needed a good amount of time and to be with you.
Yeah.
Sorry,
no. I didn't really take it, but I think it's far better. It is the advice that I give for sure. Take a year, go through the seasons, go through all of the feelings that every marker will provide and put each chapter to rest. And then get out there and start getting to know yourself again.
Very much. Yeah. I mean, because
Right?
unless you're whole and love yourself, and I know it sounds, you can't love somebody else or be loved properly because you're looking for the wrong things. And so that to me is, trust your gut too when you're out there. If something is wrong, it is wrong. If something strikes you as wrong, more of the time your gut's telling you this person isn't right. So don't try to make something work that from the get-go you feel that. But to your point, go slow. It's not a race to the finish line. It's just you want to find that partner in life that you can have that balanced relationship with and that will listen. Also, you want a good listener in a man. If they can't listen, you talked about narcissism, me, I mean, go for those red flags of words. If you're not being asked, how are you today? What can I do for you? It's the old also adage, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And of course, if you have children, if they're not going to embrace that you are a mother and have children, and depending on, what stage your children are in terms of age, there's so many just mileposts or posts. There's a better word, and I can't think of it right this moment.
Markers, like they're markers.
Yeah. That will sort of tell you. So write a list. What's important to me? What do I want in my next relationship that I didn't have? What can I do better or work on too? Because you are culpable. We are culpable to a relationship not working. Unless the man, God forbid, is a serial, whatever. But if the person's halfway decent as a human being and you didn't get along, you have to recognize that you contributed to the demise of that relationship and to begin to understand that.
That's right. And, to your point, your come froms, right? Like, why did I choose this person? What red flags did I miss when we were dating? And I saw, and I was like, that's okay.
Yeah, I can fix that. Like you said, fix it.
I can fix that. Yeah. I can fix that. Or I can see it really clearly. And I know that this is going to be a problem for me, but I'm going to walk past it. I'm just going to walk past that red flag because I think this is all I can have. I think this is the best it can be. I'm 35 and I want a baby, right? Like we need to your point, we need to take responsibility for those things.
Yeah, you can't put all the onus on, like I said, unless this person was abusive or, did those, some other things. But I think overall, you have the power to pick a person who's right for you. No one's going to be perfect. That's the other thing. When you're in your 20s, and I've always been this romantic, and, as you know, my book's called The Die Hard Romantic. It's book 1, The Accidental Sisterhood, book 1, The Die Hard Romantic. I wanted happily ever after. But when you think about Shrek, his happily ever after wasn't so happily ever after. And most fairy tales, you don't read what happened next. So, there's the reality check, what you want in your 20s, what you want in your 30s. You mentioned having a child. There's those benchmarks of life's journey. But a problem that you see doesn't generally get smaller. It gets bigger. And once all the fluff of, oh, I love him, and the sex is great, and wow, these romantic dinners are replaced by diapers, and they're replaced by laundry, and oh my God, our bills are coming in. And you know what? I've got to step back and do this and this and that. That beautiful fantasy becomes reality. And that's when the tough going gets tough. You see whether you really do get going or you get gone.
This is why we say, take it very slowly, because if you are, making these promises to somebody that you've known for a month, 2 months, 3 months, you haven't lived through enough time to make any of those promises, because you're dating someone, a few hours a day, or, every few times a week. We can all be on good behavior, most of us, for that period of time. But when it's not making the promises, not getting engaged. I mean, the people that get engaged on their third date, I'm like, well, here we go. Because mostly none of that is real. The beginning part.
But I think, don't you, that now at this age, we wouldn't do that on our third date. It would be, just be nuts.
Absolutely.
Bless Jennifer Lopez for, believing in love and getting married so fast. But look, she thought and granted, she's a celebrity, but unfortunately, that's not real life. Yeah, just give it time and allow yourself to really get to know someone. And even though we're older and we think we have less time, we have more time to reflect and be smart because we have the wisdom we didn't have 20 years ago. And to recognize, to your point we were talking about before, that you shouldn't get involved with somebody to complete yourself. You should get involved because they complement. And I keep saying that because it's such a big difference.
It's true. It is so true. I mean, look, if I don't need somebody to complete me, and if I am fully present and fully formed and whole as myself, I am choosing from a very, very different place who I allow into my life and to spend my time with. If I am choosing from a place of lack and incompleteness and desperation and need, then I'm not going to be all that discerning.
Yeah, and it's about love of self. You're going to pick somebody that is wrong if you don't feel worthy. And actually, Jamie Kearns Lima, I don't know if you read her new book, Worthy, she talks about that. And it's really about, if you're questioning it, then you're not feeling whole yet. And unless you feel whole, and none of us are not going to have our scars, our wounds, they're there. They're tattooed on our heart, on our minds. But they also should be reminders that you don't have to go into something just because you think you need somebody sleeping by your side, or when you go out to dinner, you need to have a male companion. I mean, sure, I like it. I like having a man in my life, but I like having the right man in my life.
That's right. That's right. And short of that, then I'm fine on my own.
And that's why we got sisterhood.
And that's why we have the sisterhood.
Yes, ma'am.
Exactly. Exactly. We're talking about women who are older, like us. How do you see the portrayal of older women in midlife and beyond in literature and media changing? Like, what is there a shift happening? Do you see?
Interesting. And that was why, too, there's not many books where the key characters are women in their 50s. And for me, that's why it's been really wonderful to see the response, even from younger women who read it, because then they say, oh, you know what? My mother, that's like my mother. And I always thought she was crazy, but I get it now. So, but to your point, I do see some shifts, not a lot. Like Jamie Lee Curtis, who's brilliant. I love her. She's so much fun. She talks about being in her 60s and being, trying to get certain roles and just allowing herself to be, not having the surgery, not having Botox, detox, any tox. And I think that's really terrific. And then women like Jean Stapleton is Jean in Hacks.
Jean Smart.
I love her. So you're seeing a resurgence of women being acknowledged, being awarded for their roles as women who are smart, who have been through life, who have found that they've got their weaknesses, they drink or they do this, but they're becoming much more whole and coming to terms with who they are and accepting themselves for who they are. Meryl Streep, again, being a wonderful actress and playing all these roles. So I think more and more you're beginning to see women over even 60 become more viable because they're talking about it, but not enough still. You still aren't seeing women in the workplace. They're still being marginalized. A woman in their 60s is not going back into the workplace and getting an executive level job unless she starts her own business for the most part. And so there's a lot of room and a lot of miles to go. But yes, at least voices are being heard a little bit more.
Voices are being heard. I love that, one of the other things that I'm loving right now are the conversations about menopause. that Naomi Watts is a huge proponent for women talking about this and sharing their experiences. All of the women's groups that I'm in, we just talk about it so much. The media is finally catching up with talking about the fact that we actually have been lied to about the science, right? And all of my friends were finally getting on hormones and realizing that like we don't actually have to feel crazy and not sleep for the rest of our
and sweat our lives away.
and sweat our lives away. Right? I mean, there are these are the conversations I am loving. Just loving.
Well, a good friend of mine, and she used to produce my segments at the Today Show, Joanne Lamarca Matheson. I never get her last name right. I knew her as Joanne Lamarca. She just did an incredible documentary on menopause called The M Factor. And I am so proud of her, and it's done amazing. It was on PBS.
Yes, I've heard about it. I haven't watched it yet, but yes, I heard about it.
There needs to be more dialogue because we feel like, our life, men don't understand. Younger women don't understand. Families don't understand. Loved ones, unless you're going through it, how it can affect you and debilitate you. And that there are ways to get through it. It's sort of like when women go through postpartum, the conversations need to be had and need to be understood versus people feeling like, oh my God, no one gets me.
I'm alone.
Yeah.
I'm alone in this. There's something wrong with me that
or is there something wrong with me? Do I need?
Right.
And that again goes to another kind of sisterhood, because women, that's why we can connect on so many levels and not feel alone. Mm-hmm. I think you nailed it with that just now, Kate. We're not alone. For whatever we're going through, there are like-minded women, like life journeying women who, if you can connect with them, talk to them, just vent, cry, embrace, laugh. I love to laugh. Humor for me is my best medicine. Whatever journey I've been through, whether it was housewifing, whether it was breast cancer, I try to find the humor in it, because you also need to have that outlet. And of course, a cocktail or two doesn't hurt either.
So, all right. So you've got some really great stuff. The audiobook is just came out.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And that's my favorite. My audience loves a good audiobook. And then you have a Galentine's, because this is about the sisterhood, right? And if we don't have a Valentine, it's fine. Also, how often have your Valentines actually been fulfilling? Like, come on. Isn't it so much better to spend with your girlfriends?
Well, yeah. Or you're out on this date and everybody's supposed to, not love, but and they bring you the rose, they bring you this. And then it's like, fortunately, it's nice that still they pay for it, the amount. Versus, although the younger generation, I think, they split it. But Galentine's Day for me was just a natural for the Accidental Sisterhood, because it's about women coming together and saying, I don't need a man. I don't need to be out on a date, but I can have a great time. And we're creating all these great menus. We're going to, we have it in these wonderful venues. And it's really an expression of how together we are stronger. Together we can get past this. Together we can laugh at this, we can cry, and we can really bond and move forward and share our experiences in a fun way. And that's why it's the Galentine's Day Gala. It's Eat, Drink, Avenge, which is also fun, and with a lot of different parties and games. And you'll be able to go on the website and find these different ways to have your Galentine's Day bash or what have you, and fun recipes. Like, we do a Bloody Boyfriend, which is a Bloody Mary with tequila, because that's what you might like to have done to them if you're, to kill them when they were making your heart. So there's fun to it. But then there's also the fact that, what? I'm better off without than I was with. And so this is sort of a celebration of a new year, if you will. It's a new year moving forward of your life, much like the first is for so many of January.
So people can go on to your website and find, this is sort of like a template for how to create your own Galentine's with like recipes and cocktails and whatever, but you can just do it yourself.
Yes, you can have a one-person Galentine's Day bash, or you can have a party. And so they'll be on there. If you just go to julieedelman.com, there's a whole section for Galentine's Day 2025. And they can even
I
just
love
Google
it.
that because we have that as well. So yeah, it'll be fun. It's a testament to the strength of women, the strength of sisterhood, the strength of just personal resilience as one or as many.
I love that. Julie, tell everyone where they can find you, where they can get your book, where they can listen to the audiobook and join your sisterhood.
Yes, Maya. Well, the Accidental Sisterhood is available on Amazon, as is the audiobook. And really important, Kate, a percentage of all the sales are going to Moffitt Cancer Center in hopes of finding the cure and in hopes of helping others with self-awareness and detection. And I am an advocate out there speaking at different events as well, hoping that, you all will help us, because it's not just breast cancer, it's all forms of cancer that need our support. So, but yes, all the forms, Kindle, audiobook, the book, are available on Amazon.com. And it's a fun read. I call it potato chip chapters because you read one, you just don't want to stop. And a glass of Prosecco is always a little lovely thing to do with it as well. So in us, we trust.
Wonderful. And so everything is at julieedelman.com as well. Julie, thank you so much for sharing your journey and your book and for bringing us into your sisterhood.
Well, Kate, thank you, and yours and sisterhood. And I just love everything you're about. By the way, I loved that I read that your father changed your diaper in the Oval Office under Nixon. I think that must have been a very special moment for you and for your father.
And he left it in the garbage can.
Well, I could have given him an odor eater, which was probably to use all the newspapers that he was being writ up in Nixon to perhaps quell the smell, but good for you.
I think quelling the smell was not what my father was about. He was...
Go dad, go dad.
Good stuff.
Well, great to talk to you. Thanks so much for having me on. I hope we could do this again.
Absolutely. Thanks, Julie.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Divorce Survival Guide podcast. If you like what you hear, head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in and leave me a review. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at the Divorce Survival Guide. I'll see you next time, and until then, remember, you, my love, deserve to be happy.
Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist, and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.